Hello friends! The French sedan was available with petrol engines and one turbo diesel. The base was a 1.6 petrol with a capacity of 110 horsepower, marked with the index TU5JP4. Along with it, more modern 1.6-liter engines were offered, atmospheric 120 horsepower and turbocharged THP 150 horsepower. Both units are developed jointly with BMW and belong to the Prince series. The base TU5 is a veteran of a very solid design dating back to the mid-80s. In 2014, it was replaced by an upgraded version of the EC5, supplemented by a variable valve timing system. As a result, power increased to 115 horsepower. The timing drive of both motors is belt. It should be changed after 100,000 kilometers of run. After 50 to 100,000 kilometers, the thermostat may jam or leak. Unfortunately, the Franco-German alliance proved to be a failure. Both the atmospheric EP6C and the turbocharged EPC CDT engine gave the owners a lot of worries. Both units have a timing chain drive designed for the entire life of the motor, but in reality, the chain had to be changed after 60 to 100,000 kilometers. Another common weak point is the thermostat, which had to be updated after 100,000 kilometers. The coolant pump could soon leak. After 50 to 100,000 kilometers, it was often necessary to deal with oil leaks. For example, the valve cover warped or the crankshaft oil seals lost their tightness. In addition, at 1.6 TNR, oil could leak from under the tube supplying lubricant to the turbine and from under the oil filter housing gasket. The injection pump relied on only 1.6 HP, since the only one was with direct fuel injection. The pump often fell into disrepair after 60 to 120,000 kilometers, sometimes let down and turbocharger. In the 1.6 EP6C, after 60 to 100,000 kilometers, the gas distribution solenoid valve periodically began to fail. After 80 to 150,000 kilometers, petrol engines of the Prince family often suffer from oil burns. Usually, it is possible to moderate the appetite after replacing the crankcase ventilation valve. In the 1.6 THP, it comes complete with a valve cover, and replacing the valve stem seals. In extreme cases, you have to resort to replacing stuck piston rings. With the restyling of 2017, the 120 horsepower EP6C disappeared from the list of available ones, and the turbo engine was updated. The index of the latter changed to EP6FDT. The runs of the reformed cars are still small, so it is still too early to objectively judge how the modernization affected reliability. The 1.6 HDI turbo diesel, DV6CM, has 8 valves and a single camshaft driven by a timing belt. Its replacement is prescribed after 180,000 kilometers, but mechanics recommend updating the belt after 100 to 120,000 kilometers. Turbo diesel is among the trouble-free and easily reaches 250 to 350,000 kilometers without the first serious costs. Then, the fuel injectors may require attention. Until that time, owners had to clean the EGR valve from soot, change the pressure sensor in the fuel rail or the engine cooling fan relay. The supports of any of the Peugeot 408 power units can end after 60 to 100,000 kilometers. Knocking and vibrations appear. The manual transmission is a reliable unit. The clutch usually serves more than 100 to 150,000 kilometers, but sometimes it had to be changed earlier due to premature wear of the release bearing, input shaft guide sleeve, and fork. After 100,000 kilometers, in some cases it was necessary to change the slave or master cylinder of the clutch. The basis of the new 4-speed automatic AT8 was the design of the well-known AL4. The components were redesigned and a ZF torque converter was installed. The upgrade seems to have gone well. In any case, there is no mention of an early bulkhead. However, The owners still continued to complain about jolts during shifts. Therefore, as before, it was necessary to change the solenoid valves for another 60 to 120,000 kilometers. Others decided to broach the valve body bolts, which turned out to be loose. Some owners had a chance to encounter a leak in the torque converter oil seal. The 6-speed Aisin AT6 III, as expected, turned out to be more resistant. There were no incidents with it. Ultimately, after the facelift in the summer of 2017, the manufacturer abandoned the use of AT8 in favor of the Japanese box. One way or another, both machines needed regular transmission fluid updates, once every 60,000 kilometers. After 70 to 120,000 kilometers, the outboard bearings of the right drive shaft could make noise. The Peugeot 408 suspension has a classic layout: McPherson struts at the front and a semi-independent beam at the rear. The steering uses an electro-hydraulic booster. Despite the relatively high ground clearance, the sedan does not frighten with its roll and is quite accurate in corners. However, the rolls are still noticeable, but the energy intensity and suspension moves make it possible not to be afraid of roads on the periphery. Front wheel bearings wear out after 60 to 100,000 kilometers. The front shock absorbers with sports will last the same amount, and the rear struts over 100 to 150,000 kilometers. Soon it is the turn of the silent blocks of the front levers. Silent blocks of the rear beam usually go much longer, but ball bearings are rented in the region of 50 to 100,000 kilometers. The steering rack may leak or knock after 120 to 150,000 kilometers. After 150,000 kilometers, the parking brake cables have to be changed. The protective boot is torn, moisture gets inside, and the cables wedge in the cold. Body iron of the Peugeot 408 is well protected from corrosion. What rust definitely does not threaten is the front fenders, which are made of plastic. Often the owners had to eliminate the spontaneous destruction of the plastic of the upper headlight mount. Over time, the wiring inside the protective corrugation connecting the body and the trunk lid is interrupted. As a result, the trunk lock stops working and the lights on the lid go out. Poor organization of the drain from the rear doors leads to contamination of the drainage and the accumulation of water inside. Passing 50 to 100,000 kilometers, the door opening limiters began to click. By this time, signs of wear appear on the steering wheel. The leather and chrome on the inserts are wiped off. After 100 to 150,000 kilometers, the overrunning clutch of the generator may fail, and after 200,000 kilometers, the generator itself. After 100,000 kilometers, the direction indicators stop turning on from time to time. You will need to disassemble and clean the contacts of the steering column switch. A little later, the stove radiator can also fail. Due to clogged channels, the efficiency of the heater is reduced. Some manage to reanimate the radiator after flushing. If you know of other model malfunctions, be sure to write about it.